Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today we continue our series about lesser known starships in various Star Wars factions. So far we've covered rare Rebel Alliance capital ships and starfighters, along with rare capital ships in the Imperial Navy. Today we'll be continuing that series by taking a look at 8 of the lesser known starships within the Galactic Republic Navy. But before we continue, please hit that subscribe and notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of this awesome series. We've heard reports that Dolphins have been meddling with our subscribers and trying to basically scare them out of watching my show, which is the only show on YouTube that really tells the truth about the Dolphin menace and its threat to humanity. I take these huge risks to my own personal safety, not because, I'm trying to do the right thing. It's because I'm a f***ing hero. Now, in this video, we'll be taking a look at the Galactic Republic during its more peaceful time. That's between the Ruusan Reformation to the Clone Wars. This is when the Galactic Republic lost the will to kill Xenos and, swim in their green blood. What makes this period of Republic history so strange is the fact that the Galactic Republic lacked a federal military for over 1,000 years. And then in the last half a decade of the Galactic Republic's rule, there was a massive shift and militarization effort by the central government thanks to the discovery of the Separatist droid army. And so during that period in Galactic Republic history, you'll actually see a lot of civilian ships being hastily upgraded and fortified to fit military service. This includes the first ship we'll be talking about today, the CS-1 Star Shuttle. This Corellian Engineering Corporation designed ship was a civilian transport commonly used all across the galaxy before the outbreak of the war. It could hold up to 200 individuals on board and had a Class 1.5 hyperdrive and a relatively thick and armored hull for a civilian ship. It was only natural then this ship would be used as a military transport as well. It was sort of like the Douglas C-47 in our own world, which dropped Pathfinders the night before D-Day in Normandy, but at the same time was known by the civilian world as the DC-3, a very popular civilian airliner used by industry leaders TWA and Pan Am. Now the CS-1 Star Shuttle wouldn't just be used as a military transport. During the Stark Hyperspace War, Senator Ranulph Tarkin of Iradu, a rabid supporter of creating a standing federal military, of course it's a Tarkin, modifies a CS-1 starship into an assault cruiser and calls it the Invincible. On top of adding shields, armor, sensors, and weapons to the CS-1, Tarkin also added evac pods to carry troops. The Invincible would lead a fleet of Consular-class space cruisers against the Stark Combine, a bunch of pirates and thugs. But Ranulph, just like his nephew Wilhelm, would ultimately fail in his goal and be consumed by the chaos that he stirred up. The Citadel-class civilian cruiser from Connoisseur was designed in the latter years of the Galactic Republic during a time in which hostility and separatism were on the rise in the Outer Rim. As order broke down outside the core region, private citizens of the Republic became more and more worried about their well-being. The lack of a large police presence or a standing federal military meant that private citizens were really beginning to worry about their private safety when they were traveling in more sparsely populated areas of the galaxy. The Citadel-class civilian cruiser was marketed directly to these individuals who might have enough credits to purchase their own custom civilian cruiser, which honestly was just a heavily armored and armed shuttle, not all that different in specs and equipment from a Lambda-class shuttle from the Imperial era. The Citadel class not only had shields, a tractor beam, ion cannons, and laser cannons, it even had a concussion missile launcher, which definitely does not seem defensive in nature like it says on the brochure. These ships would not only be popular amongst rich businessmen and celebrities, it would also be used by high-ranking military officials, and eventually it would be adopted by the Republic Navy. The Citadel-class civilian cruiser was so tough and durable that even destroyed versions of the ship were salvaged and usually rebuilt. Officially speaking, the Manator class was the first ship to receive the classification of Dreadnought from the Anaxis War College. This massive 8,000-meter long ship was a sign of things to come. The Ruusan Reformation had been signed almost 1,000 years earlier, and although regulations from the Reformation still limited the size and amount of weapons the Manator-class Star Dreadnought could have on board, this clearly was not a ship designed for peace or defense, and it really did stretch the existing shipyard's technology and resources to actually accomplish the construction of such a large vessel. The orbital shipyard around Quant was probably one of the few places in the galaxy that could accommodate the construction of such a large ship. By the time the Clone Wars started, there were 7 of these Manator-class star dreadnoughts floating around in the core of the galaxy. The High Republic was a period of time that occurred roughly around 200 years before the Clone Wars started. It represented a time when belief in the central government and Jedi Order were at an all-time high, and massive government programs, which unfortunately one day would fail, were trying to tackle the wild instability in the Outer Rim and replace it with prosperity and commerce instead. The Jedi at the time utilized a few different ships for their operations. One of them was the Longbeam. This was a multi-purpose craft with some combat abilities, but was mostly used for search and rescue and transportation. The Longbeam was easily recognizable by its large, forward-positioned stabilizer fin. The Longbeam would play an integral part in saving lives during the Great Disaster, in which a gigantic starship breaks apart in hyperspace and then reappears randomly in real space and starts slamming into moons and space stations. The Longbeam was able to use its tractor beam and missiles to prevent the destruction of human and, I guess, other alien life. And so the Longbeam is essentially the real-life equivalent of a AAA tow truck, but with a 50 cal machine gun mounted onto it in case you run into bandits, hazardous wildlife, or, I don't know, Philly sports fans. The experimental IPV-2C stealth corvette was developed by Senior Design Systems. It was a prototype vessel that housed 28 extremely advanced and expensive cloaking devices that hid the ship not only from sensors, but also the naked eye. The cloaking tech would work well and was tested during the Battle of Christophsis. It allowed the small stealth corvette to get within firing range of a Separatist command ship, the Invincible. But unfortunately, the cloak needed to be dropped in order for the stealth ship to launch its munitions. This is actually when the stealth corvette becomes really vulnerable to enemy fire. Also, once an enemy finds a stealth ship for the first time, they can track their magnetic signature. Overall, the stealth corvette worked quite well, but its limitations and perhaps more importantly its price made mass production and implementation of this vessel within the Galactic Republic unlikely. At the onset of the Clone Wars, the Maelstrom-class battlecruiser was the largest ship in the Galactic Republic fleet. This massive Delta-shaped command ship utilized 20 heavy turbo laser batteries, 30 ion cannons, and 40 missile launchers to command the battlefield. The Maelstrom could also carry over 100 starfighters and support ships on board. Yet you've probably never seen this vessel or even have heard of it, and that's because it was deemed to be far too expensive to actually operate, which is why very few of these ships saw any combat during the Clone Wars. The Empire's entire line of starships finds its roots in ancient Sith designs and also the Galactic Republic's need of new warships. We already covered the Victory-class Star Destroyer in our video on lesser-known Imperial ships. It was introduced in the late Clone Wars period, but mainly used by the Empire. Today we'll be taking a look at a different ship from the same era, the Tector-class Star Destroyer. This 1,600-meter long ship was almost identical in shape and design to the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, but a sharp-eyed ship enthusiast will be able to spot the difference. You see, the Tector class does not have ventral hangars. These are seen as a weakness by designers and featured heavily armored coverings over them instead. At the time, the Tector was designed specifically for broadside exchanges with other battleships, so any kind of opening or hangar was seen as a structural weakness. The Tector class actually had 0 starfighters on board despite being more than a mile long, which if you ask me is kind of stupid. Now you might be thinking to yourself, this ship doesn't really make any sense, and you're actually right, because the real reason why this ship was created was because of you sharp-eyed fans. In Episode 6, during the Battle of Endor, the Millennium Falcon flies beneath an Imperial-class Star Destroyer that didn't have 2 ventral hangars. This most likely was just an oversight by the production team, but they retconned it and made this mistake into the Tector-class Star Destroyer. The GX-1 short hauler, or a Lantillion shuttle, was a small 37.28-meter long ship that was primarily used as a starbus to ferry commuters on short journeys. It was equipped with a Class II hyperdrive and had up to a month's worth of consumables on board. The Republic would adopt these ships for diplomatic missions and mount the GX-1 short hauler with a turret-mounted double laser cannon, an upgraded sensor suite, and communication array. Even with these upgrades and its relatively robust construction, the GX-1 short hauler was not really designed to go up against enemy military ships and needed an escort in some situations. The ship also had an overly complicated landing gear mechanism that did jam frequently. So there you have it, guys, 8 lesser known ships utilized by the Galactic Republic. And as you can tell, we basically chose 2 different types of ship. One is the civilian ship that is heavily modified for military duty because the Republic was completely unprepared for this war. And then on the other hand, we have all of these proto-star destroyers, which really foreshadows what's to come after the Republic, the Galactic Empire, and their massive military-industrial complex. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.